All right, so welcome everybody to the World of Ability Podcast Network. My name is Emily Gomer and am a podcast engineer here, and excited to bring you another episode of Choose Greater Health with our friend Paige. Which is a show video a couple times a month on Fridays at 2:00 p.m. Central. And I guess with nothing kind of about her experience with brain injury and so on. But with nothing further ado, bring in Paige here to kick us off with our great guest here. So welcome, Paige.
Thanks, Emily. And I would like to welcome my guest Maria to the show, who has a background in nutrition and can tell us a little about how what she does can help brain injury survivors and potentially also those with issues like anxiety and other emotional conditions.
Hi, Paige. Thanks for having me on.
So, can you tell us a little about your background and how you got started in this particular field?
Yeah, so back in 2005, I was at my mother's house. We just had lunch, and I started getting really ill. So I thought I had food poisoning. Well, what turned out to be a stroke. I got to the hospital. They looked me over, and they said, "Miss, we think you're having a stroke." And I thought, so much for food poisoning. But what's a stroke? I had no idea what that was because I was only 25 years old at the time, and that word was not even in my vocabulary. So, to make a long story short, I ended up being paralyzed from the nose down, which means I was also mute. For people that are familiar with stroke, there's a term called locked in, where basically you're locked in your own body, and that was the outcome of my stroke. And it took me, wow, a really long time to recover or get some semblance of a normal life. It all began with a slight movement of my right index finger, barely perceptible. For some of the time that I was locked in, doctors believed I was in a vegetative coma state. They didn't even know I could hear everything and I could see everything. They thought I was basically a vegetable.
Yeah, unlike now when brain activity would be measurable.
Probably I'm not familiar with all the new medical advances, but I'm sure it probably would, right? And so I ended up doing so many things to try to get better because after all, I was 25 and there was no way that I was going to spend the next 50 or whatever years I was going to live in that state. I was not functional, basically. So I did all kinds of things. I did stem cell injections, chelation therapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I went to Germany for that. I did everything under the sun. I threw everything at it. I changed my diet. I played with macrobiotics, pescatarian, vegetarian. But after about 8 years, I plateaued. I was at maybe 70 to 75% recovered. And I thought, okay, not too bad for having been basically dead. So I was just going on living. And in 2020, I saw an ad for a nutrition course. And I was automatically interested because I had been playing with my diet for a number of years. So I gravitated towards that. Never in a million years did I think anything would or even could change. I thought this is now my life. Well, what ended up happening is that within 6 months of the course, I continued living the principles I learned. I recovered another 20%. And I finally got my life back. I finally got my life back after searching for it all those years. Time, money, research, all by changing my diet. And I already ate healthy, or what we are told is healthy. When I went through the program, one of the things I learned is, wow, Maria, maybe your diet is not as healthy as you thought it was. Because we are given information that's not entirely accurate.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting and along the lines of what put my clinical anxiety into permanent remission after the brain injury. And what started that, I think, is 8 months of twice weekly neurofeedback sessions paired with upgrading my nutrition and changing my own diet. And I've been taking custom supplements based on functional lab work since about 2018, and I've in the last 6 months started seeing a naturopath, and I've been working on some detox protocols with her, and things are progressing.
Yeah.
So
So,
have you had any clients with similar issues, and how has your work also benefited them?
so I haven't had clients that have suffered strokes. However, I've had many clients with various other conditions. I've had clients with gout, high blood pressure, diabetes, all either reduce or eliminate medications. And I'll give you one example in particular. There was a woman, she was in her 80s. She had been injecting insulin for 10 years. I think it was up to like 53 units. Within probably 8 to 10 weeks, she stopped injecting insulin, which she tried for many years. Doctors, nothing helped. So that was a big wow. And there was another client who came to me. He could barely even walk. He had an issue with sciatica, and he was in terrible pain. He was scheduled for an operation. Well, probably at about week 7, he came on to our call, and he starts running place. And he's like, "Look, Maria, I can run." And he canceled his operation. And I was like, wow. If somebody had told me that sciatica is related to food 5 years ago, I would
Oh,
have said, that's impossible. But now I know that food is the foundation of everything. Everything. Once you have your relationship with food right, then you could build upon that. Because otherwise, it's everything is on a house of cards.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I have some issues in that area according to my chiropractic team and x-rays, and they see something like my spine shifted over to the left a bit and muscles pulling on that and interfering with nerves. And so we're working on a treatment plan for that. And I've also recently been taking more omega 3s, and I wonder if things like that could be of improvement to my situation.
On the medical end, I can't give an opinion. However, I know that by getting the proper nutrition and by having the right hydration, every condition gets better. Your body just can handle things better because your
Mm-hmm.
body actually knows how to heal itself, but it's got to be given certain building blocks.
Yeah, my injury happened when I was 32, actually, and I've been on Xarelto since then for the better part of 9 years. And what I'm also working on is ways to improve things hormonally without the Xarelto side effects and less of that going on. And that in itself is a process I'm working through. Although things are considerably better than they were right after the injury, and I've been working with a neuro movement provider also, who I have some sessions with this weekend, and that's helped to regain mobility and balance things out in general. And also, I have some good padding for my hammer toes on both feet, and that's improved my walking also.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I did everything I could to get better, just like you are. Different treatments, different things, but nothing helped me as much as that change in nutrition. And I feel better now than I did in my 20s, even before the stroke. And that's a tall order. I have a level of well being now that I didn't even know was possible,
Is it a
ever.
particular type of nutrition protocol?
Yes, it is. And it'd be very easy. Well, not easy, because I'd be explaining 3 months of a program in like 5 minutes. And that's very challenging. That's not really possible. But some of the tips I would give is increase your hydration. That is huge. We all hear it. It's a cliche. Drink more water, but it makes a huge difference. Huge. And I'm talking about maybe 6 8 glasses of water per day. It really does make a difference. And I was resistant when I was told drink that much. I thought, I'm not thirsty, I can't drink that much water. And then when I finally tried it, I'm like, holy cow, I have so much more energy. This really is helpful. So,
Mm-hmm. And what does your initial evaluation with clients look like the first time they see you?
well, I do everything basically online. So I don't meet clients because they're all over the world, really. But normally they tell me a bit about themselves and what their goals are.
That sounds like a really good way to do an online provider visit option. And have you been doing that for a while?
Oh, yeah, I've been online since I started. We were online before COVID.
Mm-hmm. Then that makes your practice somewhat unique, at least initially.
Yeah, and it's not really like a medical practice, and I can't medically evaluate anyone because that's not my training. I just follow a certain protocol.
Mm-hmm. And that's somewhat like what I do, where I just, from a basic conversation, can refer others to the appropriate resources.
Brilliant.
The only definitive cause of my oxygen deprivation and blood clots is what I've come to put together is that I took certain anti-anxiety medications and hormonal birth control for most of 12 years, and I think that built up in my bloodstream and led to the clots that got into my lungs. Although in the ER and ICU, they only figured out that it was blood clots when the preventative blood thinners that everyone automatically gets there started working. And then that showed up on the scans as dissolving.
Yeah, mine was actually, well, they say that the only risk factor was birth control. I had only been on it for 2 years, I think.
Yeah.
So mine was also a clot that
Oh.
traveled. Yeah, it
Mhm.
traveled to my lungs through a hole that I have in my heart called PFO.
Oh.
It's like a little heart murmur, and it went up to my brain.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is especially important information to get out since March is both Brain Injury and Blood Clot Awareness Month, and I'm a Throw Ambassador with the National Blood Clot Alliance.
Mhm. Yeah, I think people are not entirely aware of all the things we put on and in our bodies that we think are not doing anything to us, but really they might be harmful or more
Yeah,
harmful
another
than
thing
we
is
recognize.
that I had genetic metabolization factors going on. I found out in a gene site test a little too late in 2016 that there were genetic level incompatibilities with the medications I was taking, like the SSRIs and the benzodiazepines, although benzodiazepine dependency in itself is pretty bad.
Yeah, that's really bad. My mom had it for over 20 or 40 years. 20, I think it was 20.
Hmm. Well, self advocacy is always a huge part of things for sure in getting the best treatment and a good relationship with your providers.
Yes, it's true.
So, where can other brain injury and blood clot survivors find a provider like you to work with?
So right now, the best place to find me is on my website. That's where you can get in contact with me, or you can also find me on Instagram. But let me start with my website. My website is Genuinely Maria. So GENUINELY Maria.com. And then on Instagram, I'm genuinelymaria.wf.
Well, that was a really good conversation. And do you have any last tips for those dealing with long term and chronic health conditions?
Yes, I'll give you one more. Meat is not the devil, like we've all been led to believe. We've been told meat causes all these issues, and that's not actually true. Meat is a superfood, really. It's a food that we've had the most ancient relationship with, millennia, pretty much. So meat's gonna be very helpful to you. The only caveat there, I would say, have meat, yes, but if possible, don't mix that with carbohydrates. Because when you
And
have,
also, it's probably good to find grass fed and organically raised too.
yep, I mean, there are definitely better, right? What I like to say is do the best you can with what you have, because even conventional meat that you buy at the supermarket is going to be better than all the other things you could buy at the supermarket. Even though it's not ideal, it's still healthier than all the other products in the supermarket. So, as I was saying, when you eat meat, if you don't mix it with carbohydrates, it's so much better for you because when you mix both, it impedes your digestion because your stomach needs to be really acidic to digest meat. But it in another process, in order to digest carbohydrates, it needs to be more alkaline. So when you have them both together, it's like they're competing and it really slows your digestion.
That's really interesting that I only just learned that from you today.
Cool.
Okay, well, that was another episode, and you know where to find Maria. And thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Forgot how to say the transcript. Oh, there's the button. Okay, got it. Thanks for being on, Maria.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Yeah,